My entitled family wants to take my house and give it to my brother, even though they kicked me out of their home because they had no space for me. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying my mother's message in my head over and over, like a threat written in permanent ink. Will be forced to take this further. It sounded official, deliberate, as if they'd rehearsed it together at the dinner table, nodding along, agreeing that this was reasonable, that I was the unreasonable one. By morning, fear had hardened into clarity. I called a lawyer. Saying the words out loud felt surreal, like I was overreacting, like I was betraying something sacred. But when I explained the situation, the lawyer didn't sound surprised at all. "You'd be amazed how often families do this," she said calmly, "especially when one child succeeds and another doesn't." She asked the questions that mattered. Had I taken money from my parents? Had they co-signed anything? Was anyone else on the deed or mortgage? The answer to all of it was no. Then legally, she said, they have nothing. Relief washed over me. Brief, fragile relief. Legally, she repeated. Emotionally is another story. She wasn't wrong. 2 days later, I found out my parents had been telling people that they helped me buy the house, that they'd invested in my future, that I was now refusing to help my brother in return. None of it was true. But truth moves slowly. Gossip doesn't. I started getting messages from extended family I barely spoke to, cousins, old family friends, people who hadn't checked in on me in years. "You should be grateful. Your parents sacrificed so much. Aaron just needs a chance." No one asked me how I'd survived after being kicked out. No one asked where I lived, or how I paid rent, or how many nights I went to bed hungry. They only saw the house. Aaron, meanwhile, stopped pretending. He called me one afternoon and didn't bother with pleasantries. "You know this would solve everything," he said. "For you," I replied. "For the family," he corrected. "You've always been on the outside anyway." That hurt more than I expected. "I was 19. You watched them throw me out." He laughed. "You were dramatic. Mom cried about it for weeks." I hung up. That night, I went through my old emails and messages, things I'd never thought to keep, conversations from years ago, desperate notes I'd sent asking for help, responses, if there were any, cold and dismissive. I printed them. If they wanted war, I would stop pretending this was a misunderstanding. The letter came the following week, not from a court, from a law office I didn't recognize. It claimed my parents had provided significant financial assistance toward the purchase of my home and were exploring their legal options due to my refusal to cooperate. My hands shook as I read it. I forwarded it to my lawyer. She replied within an hour. "They're bluffing, but this confirms intent. Document everything." Intent. That word changed how I saw them. This wasn't about helping Aaron. This was about control, about punishing me for stepping outside the role they'd assigned me. I stopped responding to family messages. I installed security cameras. I locked my gate, and I waited. They escalated. My parents showed up at my workplace. I found out because my manager pulled me aside and asked carefully if everything was okay at home. "They seemed concerned," he said. Concerned? My mother had cried. My father had spoken gravely about how I was under stress and making poor decisions. They'd hinted that I was unstable, that I was being manipulated by outsiders. I felt something snap inside me. That night, I wrote an email. Long, detailed, calm. I sent it to every family member who had contacted me. I explained exactly what happened when I was 19, where I went, how long it took me to recover, that my parents had not contributed a single dollar to my life since. I attached screenshots. I hit send, and then I turned off my phone. When I turned it back on the next day, everything had changed. Some messages were furious, accusatory, but others, quiet, uncertain, asked questions. My aunt called me, crying, apologizing. She said she hadn't known, that she'd only heard one side. My grandmother went silent. And my parents? They sent one final message. "You've embarrassed us." I didn't reply. For the first time, I wasn't defending myself. I was standing my ground. Silence from my parents felt unnatural. For as long as I could remember, they filled every quiet space with judgment, advice, or disappointment. So when days passed without a single message, I knew it wasn't acceptance. It was strategy. I found out what they were planning through my cousin Maya. She was one of the few people who had always treated me like a human being instead of a cautionary tale. "They're saying you're spiraling," she told me quietly over the phone. "That you're cutting everyone off because you're unstable." I closed my eyes. Of course they were. "They're worried you'll lose the house," she continued, "so they want to step in and manage things for your own good." Guardianship. The word hit me like ice water. They couldn't take my house directly, but if they could paint me as incapable, as someone who needed supervision, they could try to control everything around me. I thanked Maya and hung up, hands shaking. This wasn't about Aaron anymore. This was about erasing me. I went back to my lawyer. When I explained what I'd heard, her expression hardened. That's serious and reckless, but it also gives us leverage. She advised me to get ahead of it. Documentation, character references, proof of stability, employment records, therapy notes if I had them, anything that demonstrated I was competent, independent, and functioning. So I did something I'd avoided for years. I told my story out loud. To my therapist, to my boss, to close friends who knew pieces but not the whole picture. And in the process, something unexpected happened. People got angry on my behalf. My boss offered to write a formal statement about my reliability and performance. My therapist documented years of consistent progress, not instability. Friends volunteered to testify if it came to that. I realized how different my life was from the narrative my parents were trying to sell, and how alone they were in it. Then Aaron made a mistake. He got drunk at a family gathering and talked too much. Maya told me everything the next morning. He'd complained loudly about how unfair it was that I got everything while he was left with nothing. He admitted he'd expected to live in my house permanently, rent-free. Someone asked why he didn't just get another job. He laughed. "Why would I? They'll fix it. They always do." That was the moment the illusion shattered for a lot of people. Because suddenly, it wasn't about helping a struggling young man. It was about enabling someone who had never been asked to stand on his own. My parents panicked. They called, left voicemails, sent emails marked urgent. They accused me of turning the family against them, of poisoning people with lies. "You're destroying us," my mother sobbed in one message. I listened to it once, then deleted it. The lawyer sent a formal cease and desist letter 2 days later. It warned them to stop contacting my employer, stop spreading false claims about my mental health, and stop threatening legal action without basis. It was professional, cold, final. The response was immediate. My father called me from a number I didn't recognize. "You think you've won?" I replied calmly. "I think you've lost." He hung up. The final blow came from an unexpected place. My grandmother. She asked to see me. I almost said no. Years of emotional manipulation had taught me that meetings like this were traps. But something in her voice sounded tired. When we sat down together, she didn't yell. She cried. She admitted that she'd known about me being kicked out, that she'd argued with my parents about it at the time, that she'd stayed silent because that's just how things were. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. It wasn't a full redemption. It didn't erase the past, but it mattered. And when she told my parents that she would not support them in any action against me, the last pillar holding them up collapsed. For the first time, they were the ones isolated. The house was still mine, but more importantly, so was my life. The last time my parents tried to take something from me, they didn't come with threats. They came with nostalgia. My mother left a handwritten letter in my mailbox. No return address, no warning, just thick, looping cursive on pale blue paper, like the kind she used when I was a kid. It talked about family traditions, about how hard it had been to raise two children so different from each other, about sacrifices I never noticed. She wrote that Aaron was lost, that my refusal to help him had broken something irreparable, that one day, when I had children of my own, I would understand. I read it once. Then I shredded it. Because what she called sacrifice, I called control. What she called family, I called obligation without love. And I was done paying that debt. A week later, my lawyer called. "They've backed off," she said. "No filings, no follow-ups, nothing." Just like that, it was over. No dramatic courtroom scene, no public apology, just the quiet realization that they no longer had power over me and didn't know what to do without it. Aaron moved back in with them. Last I heard, he was still figuring things out. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. On a warm evening not long after, I sat in my backyard watching the sun dip behind the fence I'd repaired myself. The house creaked softly around me, familiar and alive in a way no place had ever felt before. I thought about the 19-year-old version of me, standing on a porch with 2 suitcases, pretending not to cry. I wished I could tell them this: you will build something they can't take. You will survive what they minimize. You will learn that love doesn't demand ownership. This house was never the point. It was proof. Proof that I didn't need their permission to exist. Proof that being cast out didn't mean being broken. Proof that family is not the people who feel entitled to your life, but the people who respect it. I locked my front door that night, not out of fear, but out of choice. And for the first time, it felt like home.